The last time we talked, it was about a year ago, we talked about your SMS audio headphones.
Since then, we launched, and the actual headsets are available in 46 countries.
And not only that, but now you have a bunch of new business ventures, including a new book,
Right.
a boxing promotions company. You have tons of new TV and film projects, a new album,
Yep.
and more philanthropy. But you're here to talk about the book right now, right?
Yeah.
Is that your big push right now?
It is, because I had an opportunity, the music actually, traveling in 2003. I traveled so far. I performed almost 320 times that year.
Wow.
I was everywhere, and that actual process, it took me so many new places. Got a chance to interact with people from different walks of life and different cultures, and I'm not like the explorer as far as food is concerned. With
You're not a risk taker.
There are different food standards, different territories that I was in, because I was traveling around the world, and I stuck to what was a comfortable thing, and it was the fast food chains that traveled.
Really?
And they got me big, and I came back, and it was The Massacre, the second album, 2005, that if you look at the cover, I actually had to draw where the cuts were supposed to be at.
Okay.
It started to soften up, so I hired a nutritionist.
You hired a nutritionist.
And a trainer to travel with me, and for a huge time period, the information that's in this book, I acquired it, from a hands-on type of situation. Over that time, the money that I spent, I feel like it just informed me in ways that the general public is not really conscious of.
Okay, so you're offering that advice in this book. It's called Formula 50, the 6-week workout and nutrition plan that will transform your life.
Right.
What are the 2 or 3 things that you would say that differentiate this book from all of the other ones that are out there on health and fitness?
I mean, just the language, the way I actually convey what the message points, and because I don't accept no as an answer, no means try again to me. Like, even on the business end, I keep it like that, so if I get the answer, it's not a big enough letdown to stop me from not going after my actual goal. So I think when they actually get a chance to see what in regimen, when you have someone to make reference of that discipline themselves in that way, that it may be someone that's inspired by the culture, and hip-hop culture is now pop culture is everywhere, so they may take a look at it because it's coming from someone. Sometimes they view the messenger
Well, yeah, I mean,
before they even get to take a look at the message.
The idea that you've been able to transform your body in the way that you did for the movie when you lost all that weight, and then you've been ripped up at various times, you're cut up now. I mean, people respect that, and they're aware of that narrative. Is that the case?
Yeah, because you don't get a free moment now. Technology allows the actual fans to be closer to you than usual. Michael Jackson used to disappear and then come back, disappear and then come back. The only person within our culture that can do that is Eminem.
Good point.
It's one person in all the hip-hop culture that disappears, and then you don't see or know anything about what he's actually doing, and then you see him when he comes back with the next record.
Why is he able to do that?
Well, he doesn't really involve himself, or he's not really active outside of music. So he just does well when the music is out and he's moving around a little bit to promote it, and then he goes in and he just stays until it's time to launch it again. So there's no change in perception of who he is or what he is outside of the last thing you heard from him musically.
Right.
So it makes it a little easier. Like with me, I found myself at my 5th and final requirement for Interscope. At that point, you got to go through an audit, and when you find areas where you feel like you're supposed to be paid at different points that you weren't, and you got to kind of wait until everybody is seeing things the same way, and they actually pay out, and then you go ahead and do what you got to do. So now we're at a point where I can actually launch the music, but in between time, because it was a 3-year hiatus that we were going through that actual process, I've been active, visible, and working.
Oh my goodness.
So they see me still sustaining my interest within music culture by doing different things that I do for promotional purposes, and then seeing me in business in other areas. So it just changes my aura. It shifts me a little bit to more business than artists at different points. And it's only because of the portion of the music business that last half music business. The business part is when you go through the politics or the actual, the workings of each individual that's involved in the actual deals.
And so you've really transcended far beyond where you started from. But people tend to still keep you in the typecast role. And it's something that really fascinates me.
Music is amazing. You become the song. You know, my first album, I wrote all the dysfunctional behaviors in the environment that I'm from. You know, I even put them high all the time when I don't actually use drugs. I just knew that they would receive that well with all the other dysfunctional content that was on the actual record. It just matched. And I've seen artists previously sell 500,000 copies consistently with those messaging points. And even more when it was college, when the content was aimed at college. Because I see Afro Man sell 1 million records with, I was supposed to do my homework and then I got high.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's that.
And Kanye was the college dropout. That was the name of his
That's
album.
targeting that market, you know, totally, you know, so.
So, because you've transformed and you've evolved so much, because you've been around the world, you've acquired wealth, and you've done all of these things, will there ever be a point where you're not typecast? Does it bother you?
No, it doesn't. You know, I learned how to navigate people in that way, you know, so the one time that it felt a little, it was a little uncomfortable, it was weird, was I approached Feeding America, because I had experience going to Africa, and that's way more extreme than low-income housing. Yeah.
Right.
You know, so it makes you evaluate when you thought you had nothing to lose, and you were making decisions based on that. When you see someone with less than you actually had at that point, then you gotta say, well, what was I basing my decisions on at that point? Because if I was under those circumstances, I would have been happy to be in the position I was in. You know, and it made me want to do a project, the Street King project, an energy drink that I chose the category because within consumer packaging goods, there was only one category. It was $1 billion category with one player, and their target audience was like 30 and up. You know, and because 5 Hour Energy was targeting truck drivers at that point. It's a necessity to stay awake while driving.
Right, that makes sense.
And this is why all the gas stations and all those areas, because it's like an impulse buy, the energy shot. And I said, well, this is cool. I'll just target a younger demographic because hip hop culture is a youthful driven art form. Of course, targeting that demo, I would have to have the product taste better. 5 Hour Energy is fine if it tastes like medication. For someone who's driving, you could take it. I feel like I'm up now. I just had my medicine.
Right.
And I'm up. And you know, the energy in the actual drinks come from natural B12 and B6, so it's equivalent to like 2.5 cups of coffee. I ended up partnering with the United Nations World Food Program because my first efforts to do something with Feeding America wasn't received. They were a little uneasy at that image you said, being typecast or
Really?
whether you should actually be working with 50 Cent. And it kind of felt like when you call in, like, oh, I gotta hear back from my supervisor or from whoever else that, like, are these people saying that they don't actually want the money I'm getting ready to give them? You know, and if it's interesting, because of who is actually giving it to them, they're going, I'm not sure we want to be associated with that because of the content. When the United Nations World Food Program, when that deal is made and they see all of the positive publicity and press, it comes back around full circle. So, you know, I didn't shy away from the second time because, you know, my intentions were to actually help out, so. Right.
And really the goal there is to feed 1 billion kids.
Right.
This concept of conscious capitalism. So the energy drink is making money, but the idea is to help eradicate the hunger
you
that
don't want to
saw.
deprogram people from wanting to be entrepreneurs or wanting to live life on the highest level, you know, and like I respect it if a person wants that. If they don't, then I'm not sure I need to be in communications with them. Because, you know, if the people that you actually associate yourself with, if they don't have the same kind of goals, in conversation you can be going in circles, so you're not growing.
You're growing. Not only have you done that, now you're in boxing promotion. You
Right.
had Gamboa. And the one thing about that fight that fascinated me was that you worked the phones. You were a promoter. You performed at the show. You used your advantage. You
Right.
leveraged your advantage of who you were. Do you think that the people that thought that you wouldn't be successful as a boxing promoter saw that value that night?
Absolutely, and they saw that was the biggest card of the year. Biggest fight of the year would be the Manny Marquez fight. You know, so to position him to come back on that actual card was definitely the right move and position for Gamboa, and he's aware of it because he looks in our direct association. He gets more people that just out of interest.
Right.
Want to say, well, where is he? Like, even if, because hip hop coaches are always conditioned for a battle consistently. So when you pick a person like he's like, oh, this is his fighter. Now you're gonna start finding other artists wanting to be associated with fighters. They may not necessarily be in it enough to be a promoter
Right.
of the actual fighter, but some sort of association and work with the actual fighters. And I mean, it comes by way of the aggression necessary to compete on some levels within the culture. I think it speaks directly to the fighters and then internalize it in a different way because it takes their mind off of the discipline involved with performing on that level. How much work has to be done in the actual gym, the music's playing. You know, the road work, the headphones are on, they running, the music's playing.
Right.
You know, so there's a connection, a strong connection with music, culture, and boxing.
Particularly your music.
Right.
You know, In the Club. That is a song you can run to forever. But it's so funny, my man, because Manny Pacquiao works out to Shakira.
Yeah. I mean, some people are passionate about different things.
I've been in the gym with
Yeah,
that
man.
guy, and it's hilarious, man. Because it's just runs so counter to what you would think that a
But
boxer
he
would do.
actually made an R&B album, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
so, you
sang
know-
together.
Yeah, so he's, you know, you can see him having an interest in that.
It wasn't necessarily an impressive win, but it was a win.
Right.
And it got you started.
And I think it is, well, to win the actual championship is always impressive. He is that level of fighter, the A-grade level of fighter. And what you saw with Manny Marquez is what happens when you got A-level fighters there. And Manny beat Marquez 3 times before that.
Yes.
And in my actual scorecards was winning that fight until that punch, because a guy with that kind of professional time and work put into, you know, being that kind of fighter always has a puncher's chance. You know, and it can be down to 1 punch.
It came true that night.
6 seconds left in the round. Marquez nose broke, blood all over the place. Those 6 seconds go by without that overhand right landing. They have to stop the next round.
Was there a little truth to the criticism that, hey, you know, this guy thinks he can come into boxing now because he's been friends with Floyd Mayweather, but it's a lot harder than it looks? Did you find, were there things that were a lot harder than they looked?
Well, the old boys club doesn't like anything new. But that old way of thinking is what pushes all of the top fighters towards me.
And you helped them.
Within tradition, the promoters have beat the fighters out of the money. When it's not my primary income, I don't have interest in that. I actually got involved with the sport because I'm passionate about it. Now, it's actually, boxing is losing.
The UFC, right?
Yeah, the entire sport is losing. It needs new energy, it needs new excitement involved, and it needs a different way of thinking. Like, I only want to be associated with the top fighters because I don't want to have to run. As a promoter, I don't want to have to run from the top talent. So the fighters that come got to be aware that we're going to fight the
You're
best
fighting.
fighters.
Get
You see what
ready
I'm
to
saying?
fight.
Yeah, and that's just my concept. I don't want to be associated with fighters that are in portions of their career where they're ducking and dodging opponents that they feel like are, you know, stronger than them.
So you're really in this for the long haul. This isn't
Exactly.
a
I mean, look,
flash in the pan.
originally the concept comes because I'm kept closer to the actual sport of boxing because my friends are the top fighters in it. And, you know, before that, I had a passion for the sport. It just wasn't something that was right in my face every day. Like when I get on the phone and say, hey, what you doing, just to talk. And you go, yeah, but they talking about I'm supposed to fight this person, and that, and I'll fight them, but come on, they got to pay the right money. Like when you're having these conversations, just because when you decide to take a break from what your business is to just talk to a friend, it'll help shape what changes you think can be made to how things work to make, to benefit the entire sport.
Of course, you were friends with Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
You're not anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have a lot of falling outs with
Yeah.
friends. And it seems like a lot of it has to do with when money becomes involved. You do business, like whether it's the game or whether it's him or other people. When money becomes involved, there's a problem. Is that the case or not?
Well, in Floyd's case, that's where it actually came, when you got involved.
Because you were partners.
Yeah, in actual business. But in those other situations, it wasn't about money, even though we had work relationships.
Okay.
It was more about, some people feel like they can't be as big as they can be around you, because if you actually are the source of why people are coming, they want the focus to be on them. So they remove themselves from that circle and they antagonize the situation. And because they were publicly connected to you, people pay attention to it. If I didn't offer the energy in the beginning to make them recognizable, they wouldn't even know who these people are. And having those fallouts with people that are actually close to you is no difference between, and in the other case, we have relationships with people, they grow apart or they have different ideas.
Does it hurt you?
No, it's more, I have to be a better judge of character. And not utilize myself as a marketing tool for people when I don't make so much of an effort to get them in position. If it works, then you did it.
The
So
thing
it doesn't feel like I did all this work to get you in the position that you're in, and then you start to just do something different.
And they don't resent you the whole time because they know that it came from being associated with you.
Right. This is when they become open to resolving things. I've had several artists come around, and after they start to gain a little momentum, they start to feel like it's me. It's me. Some of them have openly expressed it to the general public, and others have kept it quiet, but personally felt the same feelings that the other guy felt. So.
The human spirit is comprised of a lot of things, but ego is at the top of it. One of the things that about you is just the way that you walk about and carry yourself. You've had a tremendous amount of success, but somehow, some way, other than the bravado in the songs, that you have to just to stay consistent with what your image is.
Right.
In your personal life and in your business, you really seem to have kept your ego in check. How have you done that?
Well, just staying close enough to people from the beginning. My relationships early on, I got friends that have always been my friends. So they see me one way. They see what I do for a living in the entertainment portion, and then they know everything about me prior to any of the financial changes.
I can remember the last time we met up, you had some of your friends with you, guys that had grown up with you for a long time. And when I interview a lot of celebrities, particularly African-American celebrities, they talk about that transition when they went through that initial stage of wealth and how many friends they lost and the expectations that people had on them. Have you gotten rid of most of that now? You went through that too?
It's impossible to get away from it.
Okay.
No matter what group of people, whether it's your actual blood relatives or people that you've developed relationships over time that created value, there's points where some of them develop a sense of entitlement, and it can't be met. Like what they feel like they're entitled to, you can't really do that for them. And they get blinded by what you've done and they're consistently saying, look what you have, versus acknowledging what you've already done.
Right. What you did to get what you have.
Right, or just what you've done for them personally.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They'll look at it and still be like, but you have, they get into that thought process where, but you have so much, so, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have did more, and you go,
right.
But what makes you feel like I'm have to do this for you?
Right.
Like, I don't know, I got uncles. Like I can't stand them. relatives that it hurts me to have to be there. With my grandmother, she's.
Oh, they must go through her for things and everything.
They
She's
have
a
to.
sweet lady.
She's the one. So it's like,
Yeah.
if it's a function, like family function, I go because she's gonna be disappointed if I don't show up. And there's points that they're there, and it's like, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't like you. Like, please don't.
What are you going to ask me for now? Yeah.
Yeah.
But therein lies part of the connection, correct me if I'm wrong, between you and Floyd Mayweather. That he too had gone into wealth fast, but put in a lot of hard work to get there, had a falling out with his father, but continued to move forward. And you guys, a lot of people can't relate to that experience. So was that part of your initial connection that you had with Floyd Mayweather, that you had similar circumstances?
That, and he has a huge passion for music. Floyd's been following me since 2002. Like, everything that comes out, he knows all of it, all the lyrics, all the music. He's just a little insecure. So he doesn't even want to share the spotlight with his dad. You see what I'm saying? And it's got to be about Floyd. That's all. There's no any other issues between it. Like, don't get it wrong when you say, like, because Floyd is somebody that's like, it's like my brother. So he'll fall out, we have attitude, or go after each other one day, and then the next day he'll call, we talk to each other. And
that's cool to hear
nothing,
that.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you could become friends with him again?
Well, we're always gonna be friends.
Okay.
Like we're friends now. Like, there's never, like, we never stopped being friends. It just was the public was being made aware of an argument.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, you're one of the master marketers in hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you do is you can take a conflict and you can make that thing last for a year, and by the time it's over, you've made money on it.
Well, not necessarily money on the actual argument. What that does is create
Brand equity.
It creates that barbershop, beauty salon conversation. It keeps the things that you're doing in conversation and communication, because they're talking about one thing, the argument, because people love that. As much as they say they don't like the conflict, they like things to just be nice, they really enjoy the point where there's some sort of friction that's there. Like, battling's always been a part of hip-hop culture.
Mm-hmm.
We call it beefing now because we're using the same terminologies they would use in the environment. Artistically, artists that had those strong influences in their upbringing brought that to the art form. But when nothing negative happens, when it doesn't spill out into the actual street, then you know it was just being competitive, or the source of why that actual beef took place.
Mm-hmm.
When it's, I don't like how you looked at me, then you know it's about the person feeling like they're ready to compete with you for an actual position. And all it is established artists being attacked by a new guy that wants to raise
Trying to come up.
Yeah.
When you came up, you did that. You were the dude. I can remember when you came out with your initial mixtapes,
Yeah.
and everybody was talking about you. You were talking about everybody else. You were almost feared and fearless.
That was desperation also.
Okay.
That
Hunger.
that was me at Columbia Records, and they didn't actually understand who I was as an artist. I recorded 36 songs in 18 days in Bearsville, upstate New York, working with the track masters. And when we got back, they was like, okay, we're gonna do the deal. Damn. We got the album. I'm like, no, that's what I was doing to show you how I can write. No problem. That's not the actual album. I got ideas for the record, the way I want my album to sound.
How did they take that?
I mean, it took a little time for me to get the idea over, because they felt like they finished the album. You got 36 songs. We got the album. Because they was happy with what I performed on the production that we had available at that point. But I was like, no, that's not what I would do as my album. That was what I was doing to actually get the deal.
So what that really turned out to be was innovation of the new model of the mixtape, and how the mixtape, is that true? Or
the mixtape came after I didn't have the ability to be marketed and promoted by Columbia Records. Following being shot in 2000, when I recovered, like, I spent a lot of time at Columbia Records. I learned a lot. That experience for me was like, I spent time with everybody from Nicky Martin to Mark Jordan, to O.J. Wallman and Footy and the street team and radio department, and Lenny Nicholson and Rich Nice and A&R, Space Julian in the art department. I learned all of the actual job functions
Oh, God.
during that time period. So when I lost the ability to be marketed and promoted by Columbia, I had to figure out how to build momentum on my own. So I put out a few things for promotional purposes on mixtapes that were done traditionally how a freestyle would be done. It started to get attention from people from hip hop culture because it had the same messaging points, the same aggression that I had on material prior to being shot. And they were like, this is the real deal because there's no adjustment. Like usually when you get hurt, as bad as I got hurt in 2000, either your fear consumes you or you become a bit insensitive.
A lot of people would not have taken the opportunity to learn. You were thrust into this opportunity, and it seems like from being around Jimmy Iovine and being around, just if you've absorbed and paid attention and been a critical thinker, you could take advantage of that and turn yourself into what you are. But that's hard to do.
Very, very. I mean, if you don't have a lot of the examples in front of you, you're not actually in a position to utilize what you just learned. Like, you gotta kind of hold on to it until you're in a position that runs parallel to it.
Timing.
Right, and particularly like every artist that hands you a mixtape at this point is doing something that's a reflection of what I did and what I came up with in a period that everyone was afraid to be associated with me.
So how does that affect you?
I mean, it feels good.
Okay.
They don't understand that I'm flattered by them all following the concept. Like,
Okay.
I think Puffy's contribution to hip hop culture was the remix. He did the licensing, paid for the samples, and put artists like Biggie and Mace and the Lox and other artists on production that his mom played up in front of him. You know what I mean? It was older hit records that he brought back with new drums and new production around it. And now when you hear a remix, they're doing something that Puffy implemented. And for me, I didn't want to be put back into the batch of artists that can rap, that can't songwrite. Because the most talented rappers in my eyes are battling each other. They say really well thought out punchlines about each other. And they can't write a song to save their life. So I focused on my actual song structure, even on mixtape efforts. And the bootleggers, it was new. They never saw that before. So when it came out, because it sounds like a record, it's good, they bootlegged it.
Right.
And it made all of the actual illegal distribution of music my marketing team.
Unbelievable. So now, how much rapping are you doing? On a day-to-day basis, do you rap?
These days.
You do?
Yeah, recently I've been writing new material since I started to release my actual album. I usually make 2 albums worth of material to give away during the process of selling the actual record because it's taken a lot longer to position records than it used to. It used to take 6 to 8 weeks at radio, and now it's like 12. You know, like it's almost twice the length of time. So because hip hop culture has like I said, a youthful driven audience that has a low attention span, they're not sure that it's smoking hot because it would take 6 weeks for it to be at that peak point where it's everywhere in front of you. Now it's taking 12 weeks and they're going, I like that, but
I'm overwhelmed by
I'm not sure if it's as hot as those other records because it's just a different climate and time. So if I was coming up now, I'd find the visual to be more important or as important as the actual song itself, because your phone has the ability to be your recording device for your in-studio performance. And if you have the right material, you'll start to generate interest or develop a fan base, and you have limitless amounts of people online that can begin to check you out based on that.
You would have done it differently. You would have had, because it just, your strategy was genius. And when I used to talk to Chris Lighty, rest in peace, and the fact that you guys did this together and you moved about and saw the corporate side, we're gonna get money literally on that corporate side. It's not like it hadn't been done before, but you guys really did it in a different way. Who does that for you now, in absence of Chris?
We're kind of utilizing people that have always been there. Like the entire record company with G Records, we had a huge roster of artists to look after at the same time, and now that we're kind of regrouping to bring on new talent, you know, it allows the staff that's there to focus, to chime in on the 50 Cent project more.
As a businessman, how did the loss of Chris affect you?
Well, I mean, he was someone that would take all of the initial meetings for new opportunities and then kind of sort it out before it's even brought to my attention. So it's definitely a huge adjustment to make, but I'm not afraid of change. So, you know, I wasn't prepared for it. You know, it was definitely awkward and uncomfortable, you know, to go through that, but I'll make the adjustments, you know, like, whatever it is. Like in my life, I've had to do that. Like there's always a constant, there'll be a change, there'll be something else that just goes, wow, this is not gonna be like this tomorrow, it's gonna be completely different, and how do you figure it out? Like the record company itself, music business is shifting so dramatically that you go, gotta figure out how to do it. And it's not gonna be an outline for you to actually do it the right way. Somebody's gonna have to work and find that new way, so I feel like I'm the guy all the time.
With so much that we could talk about, so little time, but I really now want to focus just a little bit before we wrap up on your future. Because your narrative is so strong leading up to this point, but the opportunity now for you is vast because you've gone through that initial period of getting used to being a wealthy, famous guy. With Mayweather, he's a guy, I saw you guys acting like you were talking on the phone with stacks of money, right? And there's so much about his opulence and how much money he spends when he goes places. I don't get that sense about you. I feel like maybe you went through that period at some point, but you let go of that.
And we're the opposites on that.
Okay.
And the things. Like, you know, I don't have to, I think you should be interested in me just because of me. You know, and Floyd keeps the things around him that would make you interested in anyone. Everything is representation of those things that only 1% of us should have. And he does it on a level that forces you to be interested. The people that are watching Floyd fight are not necessarily watching it for him to win. It's because we're in the middle of a recession and the messaging points are, we have all the money in the world to spend and nothing matters. You don't want to see that guy lose? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the difference between Muhammad Ali and Floyd. Like, Ali was socially conscious and the people's champ. And Floyd is the villain, you know, because he's the guy that's there that they see in the financial space, that's a dream sequence. And they see him blowing it like it's nothing.
Okay, so as you come into your new next chapter in life, I watched the Oprah interview, and I remember the point when she asked you, you mentioned meditating. She said, you meditate?
Yeah, it was a surprise.
She was really surprised because a lot of people just don't know that level of evolution. So now, what's next? I mean, I asked you last time if you want to be a billionaire.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the financial outcomes. I want to continue success. But there's no specific mark of finances that'll work. Because to be honest with you, if I'm sitting here with you a year from now, 2 years from now, and they're like, you did it, you're a billionaire. I'm gonna still be saying, yeah, but I got another idea.
Right.
I got a new idea, and it's what I think is representation of a person who's truly ambitious. Because ambition isn't a learned behavior, it's a part of your natural character, and you'll always find something to be passionate about, or a new goal, or a new, you see guys sell companies $5-6 billion and go, yeah, okay, now what's the next one?
Well, you see that.
Yeah.
Because you're in that world now, you're able to get access to those guys and talk to them about
That's
that
the
deal.
difference too, and it's true what you're saying, because you're moving to different social classes based on your accomplishments. You know, you just fall into the new rooms with new people in them that have accomplished so much that they'll minimize your accomplishments. You'll look and go, okay, I need to go to work.
Did you
There's
get,
so much going on.
was there ever a point where you saw certain things, like maybe you met a Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates or someone and talked to them and started to think, wow, now this is what we need to do. This is what I want to do.
Well, not your Warren Buffetts or Bill Gates. Those are the guys that are like figures for that. But, you know, there's a lot of billionaires that are out there that aren't as notable. And then when you figure out how they did it, you go, like that. So,
Are they willing to share with you?
yeah, it's like, all right, you're at the light. Funny, we're sitting in that position too. Like you pull up to the light in a Bentley, you got a Musan. You just like smooth. 2013, and I pull up at the light in a hoopty. I'm in a Dodge, '93 Dodge Caravan. I didn't wash it, and I'm telling you, roll the window down. Roll the window down, and you look over, and you don't roll your window down. He won't roll his window down. Take the same scenario, you put that guy in that Bentley at the light, and the guy pulls up next to him in a Ferrari and says, hey, roll the window down. He'll roll the window down, because it was a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But he feels like you may have something to say of value to me just on presentation. So, you know, like I say this to younger actual, you know, guys out there to kind of fit the description. Like if I was going somewhere and it wasn't, I have to be conscious of it. I can't do the three-piece when I'm there as 50 Cent.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the audience will look at you like their parents instead of the actual artist that they appreciate. You know, but if you actually want to make the window roll down, you have to fit the description.
You've kind of struck a good balance between both now.
Yeah, well, when it's time to, you know, make those relationships and to talk business, I'm more Curtis than 50 Cent.
And so now, when you're in this existence and you're looking at new opportunities and you have all kinds of ideas, and then Obama comes along and says, we need to tax the millionaires and billionaires. Does that affect you? Because you just got here.
Yeah, but the
It's
money
not
got
10 years.
The
How
money
do you
got to
feel?
come from someone.
Okay.
Right? We got to, you know, make adjustments. If not, if you leave it the way it is and it's just bad, then what? It affects you then also. Like, you know, like, I wouldn't be here if the general public didn't make those projects a success. So if they didn't have the finances at that point to go purchase the materials, or they had to make a choice, like I could pay my rent and the cable bill, or I could go to the actual show. I'm paying my rent and the cable bill. You know what I mean? Before I go see the artist live, like, so those decisions, when they get to those points, then, you know, I'd rather them tax people that can afford to be taxed than to just declare the lights out for, you know, the entire middle class. And then where I'm from, there is no recession. The checks are still coming on the first. It's the same balance. There's no money there to begin with. So they're looking and going, oh yeah, we're in a recession.
When there is no, but when you have money and then you are affected by a recession, that hunger that you mentioned in the beginning, that made you who you are, how do you recreate that experience to make sure you stay hungry, or do you not need to do that?
I don't think it's about actually the money at that point. Because once you actually acquire something, then you start to realize things about yourself, like you don't need things that you wanted, because the big restraint in front of you when you're not in a good financial space is financial. Like your answer to what would make this better is if I had some money. But I mean, and the psychology has been used, even the market magazines, everything. You walk past the newsstand, they show you that dream car with a woman that's representation of codes and standards of beauty that may translate as a dream also. So the psychology is, if I get a car like that, I get that kind of woman. that draws even more interest in the financial side from a male. Like within tradition, they would say the male is responsible to be the financial support of the actual family, and the woman is there to create a serene space for them to escape the pressures of the work environment. That's the traditional relationship that my grandparents actually have. And that's why that's an attractive woman beside the car versus an attractive man. Like you don't see any men on those publications as representation of something a woman should be interested in buying an actual car. Pick a male child when they're young, they're gonna offer them cars, trucks, all these things relate to finance. Female child, they're gonna offer a baby while she's a baby, dollhouse, a cooking set. I think subconsciously they're teaching her nurturing and preparing her for reproduction.
You're very perceptive about the nuances of marketing and how, you know, one thing you can go and you could read a Harvard thesis about it, and I'm sure you have, about marketing, but you understand demographics, the demographic swings that Romney missed, right? How things are changing in America and how to capitalize on that. How did you develop that sense?
Well, just trying to pay attention to why things were happening the way they were happening for me in my career. You know, and away from having interest in selling other things or being associated with companies that were marketing products to the general public, it was just, how do I continue success from the perspective that I had success from at that point? Paying attention to that, and then it grows outside of that actual box. Because your expectations, you start to anticipate success on different projects and different levels, and come across new information that gives you a new understanding of how things actually work. Like working with Paul Feynman was at RBK, and a response to losing the bidding war for LeBron James, he did lifestyle branding with myself, Jay-Z, Daddy Yankee, a few other artists, and when you see that, the success of the actual shoes at different points, like I put my shoe at a price point that I knew everyone was comfortable with paying that amount, the $80, the same price point of an Air Force One, you know, and other artists did different things with their brands based on how they want their brand to be received. You know, so they marketed and sold their shoes at higher price points. You know, and I just had an interest in going mass at that point because I wanted to see the actual shoe on people's feet when I was out. You know, because it'd be representation of the brand, and I still was focused on music at that point.
Okay, well, your publicist is telling me that we need to wrap it up. Just one final question. You mentioned Jay-Z and LeBron and all of these guys, similarly situated guys. Will you do a deal with them one day?
I mean, yeah, I'd do a deal in a heartbeat. We'll work together on some levels at some point, the project come along. Jay-Z actually owed me a favor because I did a commercial for a sneaker at RBK, so I'm gonna run into him. He gonna return that favor.
All right, man. Curtis Jackson, it's always a pleasure to see you. Keep up the good work. Come back and see us. We congratulate you on your new book and all of your business ventures, boxing, everything you're doing.
Thank you.
And with Curtis Jackson, I'm Lee Hawkins. We'll see you next time.
That voice right there, that's it. That's why you're here. Say that again.
And with Curtis Jackson, I'm Lee Hawkins. We'll see you next time.
And with Lee Hawkins, I'm Curtis Jackson. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, brother.